What's something only kids who grew up poor would understand? Growing up poor wasn't something I fully understood until I got older. When I was little, it was just life. My mom worked long hours cleaning houses, and my dad was always in and out of jobs. The apartment we lived in was small, the floors creaked, and the kitchen had that smell of mildew that no amount of cleaning could get rid of. But we made do. My brother and I shared a room, and though it was tight, we had each other. Looking back now, I realized that a lot of what I thought was just normal was really the result of scraping by. One thing that stands out to me was how we made food stretch. There was always rice. A big bag of it was our foundation. We would have rice with whatever we could afford that week. Sometimes beans, sometimes a few eggs, maybe some cheap ground meat if we were lucky. But rice was a constant. When there wasn't enough for all of us, we'd split it, and no one ever complained. Even when the food was bland or repetitive, it didn't matter. We had food, and that was all that counted. I remember the bread line too. On Sundays, we would drive to a nearby church that handed out leftover bread from bakeries. A lot of it was stale, but we took it anyway. It didn't matter what condition it was in. Bread was bread, and it filled our stomachs. There were times when we didn't have enough to buy lunch at school, and I'd go to the line with my mom, carrying bags of bread like they were treasures. I wasn't embarrassed then. I didn't even think about it. It was just what we did. As I got older, though, I started to notice the difference. Kids in school wore brand new clothes, shoes that weren't scuffed, backpacks that didn't have holes in the straps. I had hand-me-downs, clothes from thrift stores, and shoes that had seen better days. Sometimes I'd hear the kids talk about the latest video games or what their parents bought them for Christmas, and I'd just nod, trying to fit in. But inside, I felt the sting. I wanted what they had, but I didn't know how to ask for it without feeling like I was asking for too much. One thing that stuck with me was the idea of making do. We learned how to fix things ourselves. If a toy broke, we didn't just get a new one. We taped it back together or used rubber bands to keep it from falling apart. If a jacket zipper stopped working, we sewed it up by hand and wore it anyway, even if it was a little crooked. I learned early that you didn't complain. You didn't ask for help unless you had no choice, and you definitely didn't expect anything to be handed to you. I watched my parents stretch every dollar, counting pennies before grocery shopping, figuring out how to make the last bit of food last until the next paycheck. We knew the struggle, but we also knew how to survive it. Then, there was the embarrassment of asking for things. I remember one year, I wanted a new pair of sneakers for school. My old ones were too small and had holes in them, but I couldn't bring myself to ask for new ones. I knew the answer would be no. It wasn't that my parents didn't want to give me those things. It was that they couldn't afford them. So I went another year, wearing shoes that barely fit, feeling the cold pavement through the holes. I told myself it was fine. It wasn't, but it had to be. As I got older, I realized that not everyone had to go through what we did. Kids who grew up with money didn't understand what it was like to count every cent, to be grateful for the small things, or to make the most of what you had. They didn't know the weight of trying to keep up appearances when your reality was nothing like theirs. And that's something only kids who grew up poor can understand. The pride in making do, the quiet pain of never having enough, and the resilience to keep pushing forward, no matter what.